At exactly 9:17 a.m., a glass tower changes hands. No ribbon cutting, no moving trucks, no one even walks through the door. On paper, it's a luxury apartment. In reality, it's something else entirely. A container, a sponge, a place where money goes quiet. No alarms go off. No laws are broken in an obvious way. And that's the point. Because real estate doesn't attract dirty money by accident, it does it effortlessly. Almost politely. And once you see why, you'll never look at empty buildings the same way again. Right now, across major cities, prices stay high even when people can't afford to live there. Towers sit half dark at night. Entire neighborhoods feel strangely unused. At the same time, governments complain about housing shortages, rising rents, and affordability crises. On the surface, it looks like bad planning or simple greed. Underneath, something more mechanical is happening. This matters now because money today moves faster, hides better, and asks fewer questions than ever before. Borders are porous to capital. Digital transfers take seconds. And yet, when money wants to become respectable, solid, and untouchable, it still chooses bricks and land. Not crypto, not stocks, not art, at least not first. Property. To understand why, forget crime for a moment. Forget drug dealers and corrupt politicians. Think instead about a basic problem all money faces. It needs somewhere to sit. Cash is noisy. It raises questions. Large amounts attract attention. Banks ask things. Regulators ask more. Even legitimate wealth is scrutinized. Dirty money doesn't want to explain itself. It wants to become boring. Real estate is boring in exactly the right way. Here's the simple version of the system. Step 1. Money enters the market. It could come from anywhere. A bribe, tax evasion, sanctions dodging, organized crime, or just aggressive gray area profits. The source is messy. Step 2. The money buys property, often through layers. A company buys another company. That company owns a trust. The trust owns the building. Names change. Faces disappear. Step 3. Time passes. That's it. No factory needs to run. No customers are required. No innovation happens. The building doesn't even need to be occupied. The money has transformed from suspicious cash into an asset, a respectable one. A bank will lend against it, an accountant will defend it, a court will protect it. The system doesn't ask where the money came from. It asks what the property is worth today. That's the first uncomfortable truth. Real estate is not primarily about housing people. It's about storing value. Now let's talk about why it's uniquely good at this. Start with size. Real estate absorbs large amounts of money without blinking. $1 million in cash is alarming. $100 million in a building is normal. The bigger the purchase, the less strange it seems. Luxury markets almost expect it. Then there's subjectivity. Unlike stocks, property prices aren't precise. Two identical apartments can sell for wildly different amounts. Market conditions can explain almost anything. Overpaying doesn't look suspicious. It looks optimistic. This is crucial. Dirty money often needs to lose or gain value on paper without raising eyebrows. Real estate allows that. Renovations, zoning changes, future potential. These words are soft, flexible, perfect. Next comes leverage. Once the property is bought, it can be borrowed against. That means the original money can be pulled back out as a loan. Clean money, bank money. Suddenly, the same funds exist twice. Once as equity, once as cash. This is where the math gets uncomfortable. Imagine $10 million of questionable origin buys a building. A year later, a bank lends $6 million against it. That $6 million is now pristine. It can go anywhere. Invested, spent, moved. Meanwhile, the property still exists, quietly anchoring the story. Nothing illegal had to happen in the transaction itself. The bank did its due diligence on the asset, not the soul. And here's the irony. The more regulated the banking system becomes, the more attractive real estate gets. When banks ask more questions, money simply walks around them and enters through property. Another reason real estate works so well is time. Criminal cases move slowly. Investigations take years. Real estate ownership is patient. A building can sit untouched for decades. By the time questions arise, the trail is cold. Companies dissolved, records lost. Jurisdictions changed. Property outlives scandals. Then there's jurisdiction shopping. A building in one country can be owned by a company in another, funded by money from a third, managed by lawyers in a fourth. Each place follows its own rules. Each assumes someone else checked. No single authority sees the full picture. This fragmentation isn't a bug. It's a feature. Now contrast this with other assets. Stocks are liquid. Too liquid. Prices move daily, transactions leave trails. Regulators monitor unusual activity. Art is improving as a laundering tool, but it lacks stability and scale. Crypto is transparent in all the wrong ways. Real estate sits in the perfect middle. Illiquid enough to discourage scrutiny. Valuable enough to matter. Boring enough to be ignored. And socially, it carries status. Owning property signals success. Stability. Seriousness. No one questions wealth that looks like land. Politicians pose in front of buildings they developed. Cities celebrate towers without asking who paid. There's quiet humor in this. The same societies that panic about crime celebrate the assets crime prefers most. But let's be clear, this isn't only about criminals. Authoritarian elites use real estate to park stolen national wealth. Corporations use it to minimize taxes. Wealthy individuals use it to hide assets from lawsuits, spouses, or public opinion. The line between dirty and aggressive becomes blurry fast. That blur is intentional. Governments often know this. Reports are written, panels are formed, laws are proposed. But enforcement is difficult, expensive, and politically inconvenient. Property markets are powerful. They fund cities. They prop up banks. They make voters feel richer. So action stays cosmetic. Transparency registers get loopholes. Beneficial ownership rules are delayed. Penalties are small compared to profits. Everyone agrees there's a problem. No one wants to pull the thread, because pulling it reveals something else. High property prices are not always a sign of economic health. Sometimes they're a symptom of excess money with nowhere productive to go. When capital can't find returns in businesses, innovation, or wages, it hides. Real estate becomes a vault. Prices rise not because people need homes, but because money needs shelter. This is why housing crises coexist with luxury booms, why vacancy rates climb while rents explode, why entire floors remain dark. From the outside, it looks irrational. Inside the system, it's perfectly logical. And here's where the stakes rise. When real estate is used primarily to store value, it stops serving its social purpose. Cities become less livable. Workers are pushed out. Inequality hardens into geography. Wealth concentrates not just in accounts, but in physical space. This changes politics. Homeowners vote differently than renters. Cities shaped by absentee ownership care less about local communities. Public policy bends toward protecting prices, not people. All because property became money's favorite hiding place. There's also a quiet risk to the financial system. If property values are inflated by capital seeking shelter rather than utility, they become fragile, not because people can't pay mortgages, but because the underlying demand is artificial. If regulations tighten or money finds a new refuge, prices can stall or fall without warning. Banks exposed to these assets assume stability. History suggests caution. And yet, year after year, the cycle continues. Money gets dirtier, rules get stricter, real estate gets more attractive. It doesn't need advertising. It doesn't need to ask. It simply waits. That's the most unsettling part. The system isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was built to do. Convert power into permanence. Turn chaos into concrete. So the next time you see a luxury building with no lights on, don't ask who lives there. Ask why it exists. Ask what kind of money needs walls more than windows. And then ask yourself one final question. If real estate is where money goes to stop being questioned, what happens when society finally starts asking the buildings instead? As you step back and look at the skyline, you begin to see it. An entire world of glass towers, empty mansions, and luxury condos. It all seems so pristine, but behind the polished exterior, there's a quiet game being played. One that's not about housing people, but about sheltering money. Dirty money, clean money, and everything in between. Real estate, with its ability to store value, provide leverage, and exist in plain sight, has become the ultimate hiding place for wealth, whether it's legitimate or not. The system makes it all too easy to shift money from one account to another, to mask the true source, to make it all look perfectly normal. The governments know it, the banks know it, and yet the cycle continues because, as far as anyone's concerned, it works. But here's the real question. What happens when enough people start noticing? When cities, voters, and regulators finally ask why these buildings exist and who truly owns them? The unsettling truth is, we may never know. Because, for all its flaws, the system is built to protect itself. And in the shadows of these towering monuments, the money quietly waits. No questions asked. The only thing left is whether we're ready to ask them.